jumping in.
Okay.
I mean, I generally don't think I need to be in the table for the recap, but maybe there's something different this week.
Who has a 100-word
the
summary of
sass.
the trouble you got into? And we have to actually do a real summary because Destil wasn't here last week.
Yep.
Go
Go
we were
ahead.
pirates. There you go. There's your summary. We were pirates.
You missed it.
We're not going to sing the Tailspin song?
No, we're not going to sing the Tailspin
Oh.
song.
Can we please sing the Tailspin song?
No, we cannot.
Tails spin.
Nobody has a
God,
summary of last week?
It's
All of
flowing
this-
back into my head now.
All of this fun stuff that I worked really hard on to give you guys that I give you guys really interesting characters to interact with, and all this like interplay and politics on the boat and all this fun stuff that we got, and nobody remembers any of it. Okay.
So I do
No.
remember that we had 2 instances where we were possibly poisoned, and I made the comment that Brick Road waits until Red is not here to do so.
Yes.
Yeah, which is not a joke.
Brick Road took advantage of that opportunity, and I'm not happy with him about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like getting a free week. It's like the week where the priest is like, "Hey guys, I can't be here this week, so no healing," and the DM's like, "Excellent."
All right, diseases. You get a mummy rot, and you get a mummy rot.
Everyone gets a mummy. Okay.
Oh, we got remove curse.
We did we did like ship things, and then we all had a bad dream, and then that showed the ship sinking and everybody dead.
So
Everybody insists I was dead in there, but I disagree.
the specifics of the dream are actually kind of important for
Yes.
Destil to know. Does anybody remember the specifics of that dream?
The thing is the ship was crash. The ship had sustained heavy damage and was sinking. Each of the 4 of us that was here last week was standing on the deck, beaten and about ready to go down. Hanging from one of the masts of the ship because the other one was broken, were people hanging by nooses from their necks. It was the 4 of us, or rather, the 4 of us except for ourselves, obviously. Then I think there was 9 figures in total.
Yes.
It was us. Then the captain, Captain Eyes, Calcine, the navigator, Ned Noakes, and Yashnars.
And then the 9th was the Quicksilver doll.
And Red was not in the dream.
Red was very pointedly not one of the people that was dead.
Not only was Red not hanging from the mast, but Red did not have this shared vision.
Yeah.
What else happened last week?
I got dangled over to here and snuck into the captain's place, and then poked him when he was, I don't know, asleep, sitting up for some reason. And then we got thrown in the brig where Raazu and I wrestled.
Yeah.
And then you all met the Butt Pirates.
And the captain came when we were in there before we met the Butt Pirates and said that, hey, we have a traitor on board. I have a traitor on board, I think, and I let you guys on because I know you're not the traitor, and help me find the traitor.
The captain's actual sentiment is that you guys are on his ship causing all kinds of problems, being proper villains, but he knows for sure that none of you are the traitor he's looking for. He doesn't trust you as far as he can throw you, but he does need somebody's help ferreting out this traitor.
To be
So you
fair,
trust Birdie the most?
yeah, I was about to say, he could probably throw me pretty far. Also, somebody's stealing the rum. Nobody seems to care.
Nobody knows why is the rum gone.
Why is the rum gone? I waited all last week for someone to make that joke, and nobody did.
I think it went without saying, honestly.
It's just
It
understood.
did. Not anymore.
And then you met some honest-to-God butt pirates.
Yeah.
I
A
asked,
bunch of goblins riding around on a giant turtle that the turtle of which is shaped like a butt.
Brick Road, I said, Brick Road, at what point did you come up with the phrase butt pirates? And he said when he was 16.
Yeah,
So
butt pirates was a concept that I thought was extremely hilarious when I was 16 in high school playing D&D.
As you do.
And it
Do you
just
really?
seemed... Just seemed
Do you guys
appropriate.
appreciate the fact that he's like, oh yeah, I thought that was really funny when I was 16, as though he does not still find it.
This is true.
I mean, but now it's funny ironically. Like, oh, silly me
Is
when I
it?
was 16.
Yeah, sure. I
Okay.
buy it.
Seems legit. So yeah, that's where we are. So
Who remembers the
like,
story
first-
that the butt pirates had for you?
Somebody attack them. They're supposed to be neutral.
Yeah, no, like they're supposed to be off limits. Like the butt pirates trade with everybody.
Somebody
All
pounded the butt
pirates.
pirates.
God damn it, Nodal.
Like,
What?
I need some way to send Nodal cookies to the internet.
No, you don't. He deserves no cookies for this.
Red,
Yes, he does. I disagree.
your days are spent mostly below decks.
Yep.
Under the watchful eyes of either usually Noakes or some of his bugbears. Do you prefer to take a day or a night shift?
Night shift.
Okay, so the ship is alive at all hours, all the time. About half of the ship is made up of goblins, kobolds, or other nocturnal entities. So it's actually Raazu's job to kind of watch over you and make sure that you don't stray from your station. Your day is very strictly regimented. I mean, it was even before Raazu got a hold of you. She then made it even more strictly regimented. She's running this shit like the Marines now.
Yeah, basically.
But at first, the first few days or so, like, you were allowed to be here rowing, and then once a day you would take your meal in the mess, and then you would be escorted back to your bunk back here for sleeping during the day. And that's how life went for, what was it, not like a week or so? Until one night, there was this big commotion in the ship's quarters, and you're not sure exactly what happened at first, but apparently Raazu and Birdie broke into the captain's quarters. They got dragged down to the brig in manacles. And the next day, apparently the captain went down and had words with them. And it turned out that the captain publicly kind of admonished Ned Noakes for his part in the shenanigans, absolved Raazu and Birdie of any wrongdoing, and that same day is when one of the bugbears comes around and informs you that you're kind of being let off of probation. You will have more freedom to move about the ship now. But he says this in a tone of voice that you can tell he very much disagrees with this decision, and he does not know why the captain has handed this down. What does a typical day for Red look like aboard this ship after that?
Red would probably spend about half of his time on the deck. Dark vision is garbage at sea, so I assume there's people that are mostly listening. Like, and you know, looking for firelights from other ships.
There is a night watchman.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull
Right.
up-
Yeah. There's the Kobold, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Named
Yeah.
affectionately called Scampers.
Yeah.
These
So are- before mess, Red will probably spend most of his time on the surface on the top deck, and then after mess, he'll probably spend most of his time moving around the lower deck, just trying to figure out, basically just sort of eavesdropping and having casual conversations and learning as much as he can, without seeming like he's trying to eavesdrop and learn as much as he can. He's very good at that.
So somebody helpfully put all of the, or like most of the important NPCs on the screen here.
The notepad there, yeah, I see
Let's
that.
see, 1, 2, 3 of these are spelled correctly, so good job.
Yay!
So when you say you're devoting your time to kind of eavesdropping, and you do hear from your other companions that there is a traitor aboard the ship.
Okay.
The captain's keeping his eyes out for, trying to find. Who are you kind of paying attention too? Like, who are you trying to learn about?
Before you decide that, like, I think we should watch, and Birdie would have said this, I think we should watch the people who were not in the vision.
I tend to
Like,
agree.
So you're saying that it's not going to be Calcine, Noakes, or Yashnars.
I mean, there's like 40, 50 people on this boat, right?
Not quite. There's the
20,
officers
25
and
or
then 13 or 14 seamen.
Okay.
So less than 30
20.
all told. 25.
Probably, I would probably go with Snee. I'm going to assume that
Snee Snee does not exist. Snee is a figment of your imagination.
Snee is kind of like a ship
Okay.
legend. This is apparently a just like a shadowy person that nobody ever sees. Like if anything goes wrong on the ship, they blame it on Flumph.
I'm going to assume that we've already got someone dealing with Sweetie Bird. So, Scampers.
Actually, Raazu would pull you aside once you're off of probation, and she would say, "See if you can find out what the hell Scampers is on." Because Scampers every night, or almost every night, he goes to Yashnar's and gets some kind of herbal concoction, packs it into a pipe, and gets blitzed on it.
Okay, so Scampers, Yashnars,
Okay.
and let's go with one other person. Let's see if I can get anything out of the Mute Carpenter. I'm really good at reading people.
Oh, I probably have Yashnars.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
Which
Adrex is
one?
assigned to Yashnar's.
So
But
Scampers,
Yashnar's.
who his proper name is Yugra Underfoot. He
think it's the
is
first time we've heard
the
that.
night watchman. He climbs up into the crow's nest, and he actually carries a spyglass with him whenever he goes up there. He has.
Does that work with dark vision?
Do you ask
I guess
him?
he could see. I guess he could see firelight at a distance. But yeah, I would actually ask him.
Okay. It's just like Raazu reports. When he
Mhm.
wakes up at the beginning of his shift, he takes his evening meal, goes to Yashnar's. Adrex could have reported that, he goes in there, he asks for his medicine. He's not happy about having to ask the ship surgeon for this. Packs into this long, thin pipe and puffs away at it over the course of his shift. When you ask him about the spyglass, he seems very protective of it. And like Raazu reports, he's already clearly high on something. He's very clearly under the effects of this medicine he's taking. But very cagey about the spyglass. He gives you a very curt response to the effect of, what sort of lookout would I be without one? And then he asks you, shouldn't you ought to be scrubbing something?
I think we're pretty good for right now.
Amongst your party, you and Birdie have the dubious honors of basically just being deckhands.
Mhm.
Everybody else is working closely with one of the officers.
Right.
Yeah, and then he scampers his way up into the crow's nest without giving you much information about the spyglass. This is something he's very protective of. Make me let's call it intelligence, and up your poisoner's kit. Make that check.
That's why they call them scampers.
Yep.
That is a +6. That would be an 8.
An 8. He makes no effort at all to keep his smoke to himself. It's coming out of his pipe. He exhales it into your face, which he has to do on purpose because you're like twice as tall as he is. Like he has to stand on his tippy toes and crane his neck up. Very foul smelling smoke, very acrid, and it has a tinge of like sickly sweetness to it. You're not familiar with its like. As for Runthale, I'm surprised. Oh, you do have Runthale's nickname on there. Okay.
The fucking hammer, yeah.
So Runthail's shop is in a room on this ship.
I think you said it was right over
Letter
here.
I.
Yeah.
She does most of the work at night, and she keeps to herself and very... You've actually never seen her engage in conversation with anybody. And when you've asked around about her, she does her job admirably. She really knows her craft. Most people just assume that the trauma of the Underdark has tempered her personality. And the only time she ever really seems to come alive is during combat, which is where her namesake comes into play, where she will burst onto the deck of an opposing ship wielding her warhammer.
Is she literally mute, or does she just not like to talk?
You don't know.
Okay.
You hear it both ways on the ships.
Okay.
So how do you approach the fucking hammer? She's a dark dwarf. She's a dwergar, so she would be typically sleeping during the day. But I mean, you do you. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah, I'm also on the night shift, so I would go into her shop sometime after, having done some basic work on the deck and ask if there was anything that I could do to help her out around the ship right now.
So there's a sound of clanging as you approach the door. When you step in, you see she's repairing some sort of wooden decorative piece that's supposed to go probably in the officer's mess. Sanding it down, and her work stops immediately as you enter, and she glares at you, and her face is just dour and ashen. And I'm going to say ugly, but I don't know how. Maybe Red has a thing for dwarves. I don't know, but very homely. When you ask her if she needs any help, the look on her face is telling you, like, how could she possibly need your help? What could you possibly do?
Well, just another set of hands. Anywhere you need somebody along the ship, or anything here that requires more than one person.
She pushes some stuff off of her work table, and it just clatters to the ground. Just some old tools and scraps of wood. And she beckons you over.
Okay.
She grabs hold of your wrist and places your hand palm down on the table and flays your fingers apart. Looks at you and gives you a curt nod.
Can I use insight to try and figure out what she's trying to communicate?
Yeah, if you want.
I believe that's a 23. Yes.
You have no idea what the hell she's about.
Okay.
Mostly, this glance she's giving you is searching for, like, whether or not you're going to allow this to happen. But she takes up, in her left hand, she grabs 3 large nails. And with one swift motion, she sticks them into the table, so they're in between 3 of your fingers in the table. Then she points nearby where she has a little wooden mallet. And she just points to it.
I'll pick it up.
And then what?
I mean, if she makes no further indication, I guess I'll just kind of raise the mallet over the nail as I'm going to strike it and give her a look saying, is this what I should do?
And she makes no movement. She's waiting for something to happen.
Okay, yeah, I'll start hammering the nails into the table.
So you've got
I'll just get them started at first.
You've got your right hand on the table, splayed out with nails between them, and your left hand you're just pounding with this mallet. And as you're working, she goes back to what she was doing.
Okay.
And after a few moments, you pounded these nails into the wood. What do you do next?
I'll just wait.
When she hears the pounding stop, she turns around. She reaches up on the wall and takes down a a crowbar off a tool shelf
Mhm.
with a pry on the end of it. She hands it to you, beckons to the nails you just pounded.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
In a few minutes, you pry these nails out. And then what happens?
That's it. Just put the nails back on the counter.
And when you're done with that, she again grabs your hand, splays it on the table. And this process repeats for as long as you allow it.
So, for most of the night. Okay. So this is going to be a pretty messed up table by the end of it.
I mean, it already is. This table,
Okay.
yeah, it's got holes, it's got splotches of paint everywhere. There's sawdust caked on everything. This is a very well-used and old workspace. Disorganized, but it seems like it's well-maintained. The tools all seem in good repair. It's the kind of room... like, you walk into and nothing makes sense, but it's clear that the person who lives and works there can make sense of everything.
So does anyone else come into the room while over the course of the night?
No, you're the only person crazy enough to walk into the fucking hammer's shop.
Okay. Yeah, and by the end of my shift, I'll just kind of nod to her. Ask anything else?
So you work all night pounding these nails into the table and prying them out with a crowbar. And, I mean, the sides of your fingers have scrapes and redness on them from coming up against these nails. And but at the end of the shift, as you're about to part ways with her, she grabs your hand for a second and just looks you dead in the eye and then begins marching downstairs towards the mess.
Okay.
So you find yourself sitting in the mess down here in tea, and you can smell at this point in the morning in the next room in the kitchen. Sweetie Bird and probably Wendy. Well, Sweetie Bird's doing most of the work. She doesn't really let Wendy do much of anything. But you can smell the beautiful aromas of the lovely breakfast she's preparing for people of much higher station than you. Typically in the morning, you'd have some just basic rations, some hardtack, some beef, maybe a mug of grog or whatever you drink. What does Red drink typically?
Probably 2 mugs of grog a day plus water.
Okay. So when you go to take your mug of grog this morning, the fucking hammer puts her hand over the tankard and doesn't allow you to drink it. And she just sits like that for a moment. Until, Wendy.
Yeah.
One of your jobs every morning is to go down into the hold, where there is a keg with strong black iron bands. It looks very different from other kegs aboard the vessel. It's not just a standard barrel. You would recognize its make as, like, the wood of it. It's not standard wood. It's made of the hardened fungus stalks that pass for wood in areas of the Underdark.
Sure, that sucks.
And one of your jobs in the morning is to go down there with a tankard that you're supposed to clean out first. Draft a beer from this tankard and bring it back up and serve it to the fucking hammer.
Right.
She takes it with her dinner. This morning, Sweetie Bird, she seems absolutely flummoxed. Like, she's like, this is something that she's never seen before. But she says, for whatever reason, this morning, the fucking hammer wants you to draft 2 tankards.
All right.
So, Red, you sit there and have a tense moment with the Dwergar's hand over your mug. She's not allowing you to drink your grog until Wendy comes in holding these 2 tankards.
And you get a little bit of wind blown on your face very briefly. And then Wendy says, Red, what?
Hey, Wendy.
When Wendy sets the tankards down in front of you, that's when Roomthale takes up Red's mug and just splashes the grog on the floor. And then she begins drinking of her own.
Yeah, sure, I'll have some of the whatever.
And it's a very heady dwarven stout. It's like this is the kind of beer you could have for breakfast. You could pour this out on a plate and cut it up into...
So it's bread in a cup. Got it.
Right. And I don't... Definitely different from what you're used to drinking. This is some very high quality... Like, you're thinking this, you're like, damn, Adrex would really appreciate this. But you can tell with your 20 insight that you got, this is Runethal's way of rewarding you for a job well done. But she doesn't say anything or do anything or even look at you. As soon as her meal is done, she stands up and leaves the room.
Nope. That's exactly what I wanted.
You did, by the way, in the shop, get a good look at her warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
And to your eyes, the head of it is... It shapes like the head of a demon, similar to maybe the Abishai that you fought.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a gargoyle or something. The heft of it is blackened wood, and then the head of it looks extremely shiny and polished. It looks like it's made out of solid silver.
So, one- or two-handed hammer?
One-handed. She wields that, and she has a huge brass shield. Actually, scratch that. While you were in the shop, she typically uses a brass shield, but I look at my notes here, and she has a new shield now that has mechanical iron bands strapped across the front of it.
Awesome.
So your date with Runethal the fucking hammer went
Swimmingly.
not as much fucking as you were expecting, though. So.
Womp womp.
Well, it's one-handed.
The rest of the ship during this time is abuzz, because apparently Captain Eyes has decided to chase down the ship that attacked the Poor Butt Pirates, a ship called the Blue Nixie. And so the ship is abuzz right now, especially C and Scampers, the two watchmen, are doing what they can to try to spot this ship. Rhodos has been tasked with using his magical alchemy to divine its position. What are your guys' response to this task of hunting down this ship?
It's what the captain decided, so that's what we're gonna do.
You're all
They
about
attack the
following
butt
rules
pirates who
this week.
seem harmless.
Yeah, what's the context of this attack exactly?
They don't know.
Oh, okay.
The idea of any of these vessels attacking this poor little... It's this group of goblin pirates that rides around on a large sea turtle, and they do good trade. Everybody loves these guys.
Are they actually pirates, or are they just traders?
Probably just traders. Their combat worthiness is probably not great. And the other thing that marks them as not being pirates is that they're all goblins. It's not a mishmash of lots of other different races. But they ride around on a giant, what looks like a stone butt, floating across the ocean. And yeah, just the idea of them being attacked. 1 minute they were trading with the Blue Nixie, and the next minute there was a call to arms. And they survived by going in their little shack and battening down their hatches, and the sea turtle dove underwater to get away from the attack.
I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell our group is actually doing here, or intending to do here, so... I don't have any particular... Like, this seems fine to me. Seems completely legitimate to go after these other pirates. Would be nice to talk to them before you attack them, but... Don't know how realistic that is.
Not
we generally
very
talk to
realistic.
people after we attack them.
The tone of the deceit at this point, it doesn't seem very realistic at all. There are some people that are just itching for a good fight. Seems like it's been a while. There are others who seem to have beef with the Blue Nixie in particular. There are still others who are looking forward to just the plunder and treasure aboard. The ship is abuzz with whether Captain Eyes will decide to raid the vessel, sink it, or take it for himself.
Play your cards right here, Raazu. You can get your own ship.
Yeah, well, Do we have need of a ship? Anyway, so as far as like, are we still like getting a pulse of the crew, or are we still kind of trying to trying to make any progress on the on the trader angle?
So how would you attack this problem, Raazu?
Well, Red's already kind of trying to get something in on Scampers and the fucking hammer.
So how's Red attacking this problem? Or Raazu, I mean.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to... Because Ned Noakes is probably not amenable to any kind of conversation with Raazu at this point after the captain browbeat him in front of everybody.
He's laid up a bit as far as working you night and day. He no longer expects you to watch him during his entire shifts. But it's definitely not a friendly rapport. It's more like he just doesn't want to spend the time around you anymore.
Well, I mean, for whatever his beef with Raazu, I just want to make this clear. Whatever his beef is with her, it's not for lack. It's not for lack of completing her duties. Like Raazu does everything that is assigned to her and does it promptly and efficiently.
On the contrary, for the first week or so, when he had you up night and day following him around, it's like everything that you did, he could find fault with. He went out of his way to find fault. He's not doing that so much anymore. Now it's just, okay, you know what? The captain has spoken. You do your job, and it's on you. So,
okay.
Other than, I mean, you still have to share a bunk with him, but other than that, so it's definitely not a friendly rapport, but he has eased up in one sense.
Okay. I guess I really can't. I guess I would have to ask. I'd have to. I'm looking at this list of officers here, and I'm not really seeing much of the way that someone hasn't already approached. I mean, maybe Rosh Aldosh.
Okay.
Raazu would try to get a little more out of him. Find out what's his story. What did he? Because Raazu's already kind of given him her story as well.
So you approach Aldosh one day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you catching him on duty or off duty?
Probably while I'm off duty, so he's doing, but Raazu's not trying to interfere with what he's doing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just kind of, you know, you don't need 12 hours of sleep, especially not Raazu now anymore, because she's not being kept up all hours of the day.
And how do you approach Aldosh? What do you say to him? Like, are you trying to figure out if he's the traitor? Is that the idea here?
Maybe that's my end game for him. But I want to. But basically at this point, it's just kind of, you know, the getting to know each other kind of.
Okay. You'd previously spoken to Aldosh a little bit because of this rum situation.
Yeah.
And you didn't like his way of handling it. His lookout is like, you know what? Look, the men are going to sneak below deck from time to time. A couple things will go missing, but trying to crack down on it and stop it from happening would create more problems than it would solve. That's his outlook.
Yeah.
Other than that, he seems to be a very kind of amenable sort.
Mm-hmm.
What is Windy doing as far as sniffing out this traitor?
Windy still thinks that the best chance that they have of sniffing out the traitor is learning more about everyone's, like, symbols and such.
Mm-hmm.
And since that's not really something she's good at because she can't see, she's going to continue with her route of just attempting to make friends with C.
With C, okay.
As an inroads to the rest of the crew.
And one thing that you keep finding is you cannot shake this feeling of restlessness that you have ever since you drank that awesome poison.
Oh, that happened also, Destil, by the way.
Yeah.
Did it change at all when we found out from the butt pirates that we had, like, to go hunt down this vessel? Like, was it a sense of, like, oh, that's the thing that I should be going to do?
I mean, I can't answer that question for you. It just it always seems like no matter what you're doing, like anytime your mind wanders, like you'll find like your foot tapping unconsciously, or you're like your fingers or claws rapping against the wood rhythmically. It just seems like you just are never at rest. It just feels like you need to be doing something and you can't be sure what.
I'm going to run that feeling by the ship's wizard, alchemist, and thaumaturge.
Okay.
He's the one who told you, he gave it to you and told you not to drink it. He told you to
He didn't tell me not to drink it. He told me to get someone else to drink it.
He told you
didn't
to
want me to
take
drink
it below deck and give it to Raazu.
And
Is that what
Birdie.
it's called? To Raazu and Birdie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he told you, given their weights, you should do like an 80-20 split.
Right, and so I did my best judgment of what that translates to in windy size.
And when you bring this to Rhodos, like he told you, he tells you that he warned you it could possibly be dangerous. That's why he asked you to give it to the captives of the ship who were more expendable.
Right, that's why I had some.
And he doesn't understand that reasoning because that's actually insane reasoning.
Well, it's more dangerous. I can't just give it to somebody else.
Is Wendy being honest with him?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Like, I had to think, like, should I ask Nodal this question? Because I know what he's going to say.
The way Wendy sees it is if she got given this vial that's extremely dangerous, that means that she should drink it.
So, I mean, he runs you down the questions. How much of it did you drink? What was the reaction like? So, as I recall, you drank some measure of it, passed out in the surgery, told Adrex to wake you up after, like, an hour or so.
Yeah.
And he did, and then you vomited.
Yes.
And ever since, you've had this restless feeling.
Yeah.
So, he tells you under no circumstances is he going to give you some more of this mixture. That would, it's way too dangerous. But he's very interested in your reaction about it. He asks you lots and lots of questions. He stops short of, like, running a lot of tests. Like, he doesn't, like, whack your knee with a little hammer or anything like that. But he takes a lot of notes as you're speaking to him.
Uh-huh.
And he tells you that if there are any developments, he wants you to come to him straight away.
Sure, and if he thinks of any more tests he'd like to run, Wendy will be interested in helping him out. Wendy wants to figure this out as much as he does.
His understanding is that the new Dragonborn on the vessel, that friend of yours, is going around conducting, like, health assessments.
Sure.
He wants you to shy away from doing that. Whatever is happening in your body with this mixture that he gave you is out of the purview of what a simple field medic can diagnose.
Sure.
You are clearly now in the realm of sorcery, and that's kind of his wheelhouse.
All right. Should I, if I can get measurements, though, more accurate measurements from somebody with a specialist that, while lesser, is different from your own, would that help you with your assessments?
And he taps your hand for a moment, and you realize that as you've been talking to him, the claws on your hand have just been digging into the side of this couch, leaving gouge marks.
Oh, sorry.
And he says that he's not going to be able to do any more in-depth tests. until next time they make port. There are some specialized herbs and concoctions that he's going to procure next time the vessel comes to port. And when that happens, you'll be able to do more in-depth observations.
All right, sounds good.
And he does assure you, though, that if you haven't died by now, you probably won't.
That's how I tend to live my life.
That's true of literally everything. Is Windy at all suspicious that Rhodos might be the traitor on the ship?
Honestly, Rhodos seems like if he was the traitor, he would have just told somebody by now. He's not exactly the world's most deceptive.
He is a bit of a braggart. Okay. Adrex,
Yes, sir.
what are you doing as far as finding the traitor on this ship?
So, I imagine Adrex has been assigned to Yashinar, so he's the traitor. But Adrex being Adrex probably loses interest in that
Okay.
over like the
Fair.
third or fourth day, and just goes back to being a leisurely assistant to the ship's surgeon. Has word gotten around the ship that there is a cask of green grog in the surgeon's office? Or
Oh, yeah, no, it's common knowledge. Aldosh purchased some for the ship's stores, and then several of the men with their own money also purchased their own supplies
Okay.
of green grog from the Butt Pirates. There is plenty of this aboard the vessel.
Like I'm curious if people are trying to find excuses now, visiting the ship's doctor and being like, "Oh, I need you to give me something," and Adrex is being like, "No, you're fine."
So, like,
But-
is that like Adrix's lollipop? Like, here, have a mug of beer. Good job.
No.
GJ.
If you seed around that, hey, we're doing these health assessments, and if you come in and let me do my thing, you'll get a ration of green grog, then yes, there will be people lining up. Because why not?
Actually, yeah, let's do that, because that seems like a decent way to suss out a traitor.
Okay.
Does it?
In Adrix's mind, yeah. Get to
Raazu-
intimately know people.
Get everybody
Raazu
drunk.
would instruct, if you brought this to Raazu would agree and say, instruct everybody on her shift to make time to go and check in with Dr. Adrex.
So if they decide not to, though, what does Raazu do? Like, how do you enforce that?
Well, they don't get any green grog.
They don't get
No lollipops for them.
Yeah.
Adrex would take note of who hasn't shown up yet.
Okay. None of the officers would take up this option. Obviously, any
Sure.
of the officers that want, they have enough, they get enough shares, they can buy their own. But a lot of the crew does, including the kobolds and the goblin who were fighting over rum earlier. Very notably, though, none of the bugbears. There are 4 bugbears aboard the vessel, all loyal to Ned Noakes, and none of them take up this option. Raazu, it gets back to you that Noakes has instructed them not to.
Noakes was hanging in the dream, right?
Yes.
He was.
Okay.
So that's the part of the dream you're looking forward to, right?
Yeah, very much, very much.
In
But the rest
fact,
of us-
Okay.
the kobold, Hevlu, one of the ones that Birdie was arguing with about missing rum, he's there 3 days in a row.
No, he only gets
Yeah.
one.
Well, but he tells you that he came a second time to do the assessment a second time, and then he should get another ration of green grog.
Well, Adrix wouldn't assess him a second time. Because Adrix has the information that he needs, gave him the green grog as appropriate.
Green Grum.
Green grog.
And then after you
Green grog.
explains to him on the second day, he still shows up on the third day.
At
And
that
Adrix
point,
will
Raazu
explain
would
again.
nail him for malingering.
Raazu gets on him for malingering.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Now you said one of the things you wanted to do is assess the men's like spiritual health.
Yeah, insofar as much as is that I know Yashnar's is big on gods, so
Most of the ship is religious in the same sense that anybody on this continent is religious. Everybody knows or has served or one of the living gods. The rat folk have their... Well, you can't actually speak to the rat folk because they don't speak your language. But like the kobolds are each beholden to like an ancient dragon somewhere. C has her knowledge of not the Windukes, but some other living like ancient bird god. And that's kind of how it goes, except for the orcs and the bugbears, who have their dead gods that they worship. They're gods of war and bloodshed and whatnot. So what is Adrex's goal as far as these assessments when it comes to their like spiritual well-being?
Strictly speaking, Adrex wants to make sure that they're mentally at their sharpest.
Okay.
He can't really help them spiritually, though. So if anyone was actually speaking spiritual comfort, he would defect to Yashnar's and say that Yashnar's is more of that person. Since Adrex's god is kind of a dick, and he doesn't like to talk about him.
Spiritual comfort is in very short supply on this vessel, because all of the living gods are kind of dicks. The dead gods worshipped here would mostly be like orc and goblinoid gods, and the only exception is Yashnar's god, whose basic outlook is survive on your own strength or you don't deserve to live, basically.
Yeah, Adrex has a question about that.
Okay.
And you would ask this to Yashnar's at some point. Alright, so only the strongest survive as part of the belief in your god, right? So why are you a surgeon? Why do you heal people? Is that not counteracting what your god wishes?
He tells you that because a thing is broken doesn't mean it's useless. A thing that can be fixed and made useful is a thing that can be put to use. Part of his surgery, part of his like work ethic is you can only get well from sickness or injury if somewhere inside you have the desire to keep fighting. And this is kind of his own personal experience. When he talked about the shipwreck that he endured, and being alone on this island, and being divorced from his gods, and not being able to go to the battlefields of the afterlife. It wasn't until he decided to keep living, decided to push on and keep fighting for his own existence, that Osprey delivered him from the island. When people come to him with sickness or injury, the ones that... And this doesn't happen often because you're on a ship of willful pirates. But the ones that have kind of given up, given themselves over to the sickness or injury, he doesn't work that hard on.
Got him.
So guys like scampers, huh?
But wouldn't okay. If anyone needs spiritual help, I'm gonna send them your way. All right. Excellent.
Does Adrex show any particular interest in the religion of Osprey?
Low quality shit god.
No, I don't think you would. Adrex's god is a... So, here's Adrex's thing. Adrex's god is a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, all gods must be dicks. And he wants nothing to do with them.
Yeah, that sounds right.
But if... I mean, Raazu has mentioned to Adrex at one point that she's curious about Osprey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, then Adrex would have brought it up to Yashnar's at some point too.
Okay.
Well, Yashnar's also told you to put Raazu in touch with him for the trident that she found.
That we don't currently have.
Birdie,
Yeah.
Yes.
what are you doing as far as sussing out the traitor on this vessel?
Well, first things first, I am going to go to the well-being thing and get my thing of ale and give it to Miss. What is that kobold's name again? Not Scampers, the other one. The one that like was mad at me because I was making a joke and he took it the wrong way.
Nim.
Nim.
Yeah, that was Nem.
Like, I'm gonna go talk to Nim and
Okay.
like, here, you can have this, and then tell him that I'm gonna tell him about the.
He takes it, and he sniffs at it. Did you piss in this?
Would that stop you from drinking it?
And he shrugs and he drinks it down.
And, like, I'm gonna tell him that like I think that he was right and that the goblin is taking the rum because he has a key to the storage area, and he tried to get me to frame you for the thing after you approached me.
And he looks at you for a moment, kind of taken aback, as he wipes the foam off his mouth with the back of his arm. Are you bullshitting me?
No.
And he reaches down to his belt. He pulls out a knife and he stomps off in search of this goblin.
Well,
What time of day is this? Are you doing when you're on duty or off?
like, we would be on duty.
Okay.
Like I like just after I got done seeing Adrex.
Okay.
But then like Birdie will try to stop him, like, no, don't do it right now. Says the scary hobgoblin lady will throw you overboard.
Make a persuasion check.
Like
I
5.
noticed you don't say deception because he's not lying.
That's why I said persuasion. A 5?
Yeah.
And you're not able to dissuade him from this course of action. He tells you that the hobgoblin is a poor excuse for Noakes, and she doesn't scare him at all. And he stops below deck where he thinks Quazginkle will be.
Oh, okay.
So do you chase after him, or do you go give Raazu a heads up?
I just shrug and go back to work. It's not my problem anymore.
Okay, Raazu.
Hey.
There is a kind of to-do below decks.
Mm-hmm.
In room O here. There is a fight that breaks out between the kobold Nem and the goblin Quazginkle. Apparently Nem came up behind him with a knife, tackled him to the ground, held it to his throat, and started yelling at him about being treacherous and a snake. And when you come in, they're both scuffling on the ground with a very unproductive crew at this moment kind of gathering around.
Raazu will shout at the lot of them to clear the area. And are there any bugbears that are on duty currently?
No, it's nighttime.
Okay. Raazu will attempt to pull the two apart.
Why doesn't Raazu roll initiative?
Absolutely.
Why doesn't Raazu roll initiative?
Because
That's a good
Raazu.
question.
I don't know why.
Before I
There
forget,
goes.
while Raazu's rolling initiative, Red, I actually learned at least one of the passwords to the traps, at least to this one, and I would have told Red that in case he wanted to try and get in one of the locked doors.
To the captain's quarters? Okay, what was the password?
I don't remember because that was
Is that the
last
password?
week.
I don't remember. Okay. That's good. It's not as good as there's nothing as useless as a voice password and a lock, but
I will.
Pretty good.
If you make me, I will go back and watch the archives and get it.
Okay, you should go do that then.
Yeah.
Raazu, how'd you do?
I'm on a 1.
That's a
so
rude. So you yell out for them to break it up.
Just stand there.
yeah.
And the Kobold, who's blue here, he rolled really high,
Mm-hmm.
pulls out this knife. And he says, sure thing, right after he bleeds this one out. This Kobold is 3 sheets to the wind, by the way. You can tell that he's very recently consumed a quantity of green grog on duty during his shift.
Yeah.
And he begins stabbing this goblin with a knife, leaving a deep wound. The goblin is trying to get away. Let's see how this opposed strength check goes. Not well for the goblin. So he suffered 1 wound where the Kobold has gotten him with his knife. The goblin is trying to break his grip, but he's a little scrabbly goblin. He's not particularly strong.
Okay.
And then 1 rolls around 6 years later.
Yeah. Raazu's gonna close and pull the kobold off of the goblin.
Okay, make a grapple check.
It's just a hit roll, right? Hey, that's a nat 20.
It is a strength athletics check.
Strength athletics check. That's really good because I rolled a nat 20.
Okay, I rolled a 2.
Yeah.
So you grapple this kobold and do what?
Hold on to him for until next turn when I can apply manacles to him.
Okay, so I'll give him 1 chance to get free from you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and make a strength athletics check.
Uh, 16.
And you manage to slip these manacles on him. Do you have special kobold-sized manacles?
No.
No?
She probably should.
you
Yeah.
really should.
So we're about right here. So I would the surgery is probably either got Adrex or Yashnar's in there right now. So she calls out, "Medic!"
So Adrex, you and Yashnars are in your bunk nearby, and you hear Raazu call out for a medic.
Birdie sticks his head down the stairs and says, "Don't throw him." Tells him, "Don't throw him overboard." And then
What the hell happened here?
Raazu points to the goblin and says, "Can you patch him up?"
Adric sighs and rolls his eyes. Picks up the goblin, hoists him over his shoulder, fireman style.
Okay.
Brings him into surgery.
Raazu, what do you do with Nem?
Haul him down to the brig.
And the whole time you're hauling him down, I mean, he's yelling. He's going to finish what he started. He's going to gut the goblin, and then he's not scared of you, so he's going to gut you next, etc., etc. And you chuck him in the brig, where Birdie is apparently for some reason.
Oh. And then once I've done that, I will. I'll inform Noakes.
in the middle of the
Yeah,
night.
he's asleep at this point.
How much latitude has Raazu been given?
Make an insight check.
$16.
Without actually going in, you can imagine what Noakes' response would be. If he needs to wake up and do your job, what does the captain need you for?
All right then. He's getting lashes in the morning in
Okay.
front of the whole crew.
Birdie, do you ever inform Raazu that this is your fault?
This is not my fault. This.
That's your flaw, right? This is not my fault.
It really could be.
If he wanted the XP, that's what he would pick.
It isn't my fault, though. I
Adrex.
fail to see how this is my fault.
Are you handling this, or do you need Yashnars?
Adrex can handle this, sure.
Okay. If this goblin, the story is he just got jumped below deck, wrestled to the ground, and he's got a pretty deep stab wound.
Absolutely nuts. And just Does the goblin say who did it?
Oh yeah, no, he's absolutely livid. He knows exactly who it was. So does half of the ship. They were out there watching.
It was absolutely clear that Raazu was pulling the kobold off of off of him.
All right, let's rip apart some of his clothes, stitch him up. Use a healer's kit. I don't know. What do you want me to roll? Do you want me to roll?
Use your healer's kit as standard to give him hit points back.
Yeah. All right, we'll do that.
By the end of the triage, he does seem at least a little excited that at least Noakes will be forcing him off the plank the next day. Attacking one of your fellow sailors aboard this vessel is not considered it's not considered playing nice.
Adrex gives him a little green grog.
He did, by the way, show up for the previous day.
Yeah, but he's injured, so anything to numb the pain. And since he's going to be shoved off the ship tomorrow.
He's not. The kobold is.
Yeah, but he stole the key, didn't he? He's the key to the room. That was the whole point of this.
Birdie told the kobold that this goblin had a key to the stores below.
Does Adrex find it?
Do you search him? Do you pat him down?
I think that would happen in the course of sewing him up.
Are you trying to do it without him noticing? Make dexterity sleight of hand.
Yeah, okay.
Come on, nat 20. Oh.
17.
17.
Of course it's a 17.
You do notice that he's carrying a set of keys, and he didn't seem to notice, because he's like wincing in pain. He's focused elsewhere, and he's focusing on his wound and his anger. But you do find he's concealing a set of keys.
Whole set. Goblin expert.
Adrex pockets the keys.
You take them?
Yeah.
Okay, when you go to take them, he realizes you're trying to take them, and he puts his hand on yours and says, "Why don't you stick to the stitching, Doc?"
What are you hiding, little buddy?
Says he's not hiding anything. That's his property.
What property is it? Adrex narrows his eyes a little bit.
He asks, "What's with all the questions?"
Got Adrex there.
What is with all the questions?
And at this point, with his hand still on this set of keys that you were trying to take, I mean, he hops down off of this like wooden table you had him on, and he tells you thanks for the grog, but if you've got any problems with him, you should take it up with Raazu is his overseer right now. You could take it up with the quartermaster. And you see you've kind of offended him, and he takes his leave of the surgery. Still wincing and limping, but less so than he was. To his credit, it looks like he's going to go work off through the pain.
Birdie's
Adrex
following
goes
him.
to find Raazu.
Okay. What is Red doing at this point? Red is awake and active at night.
I think at this point, Red's routine will be ostensibly do his job when he get food. Ostensibly do his job for a while. Try and talk up. What's the crow nest guy's name? Scampers. Scampers. Keep trying to talk up Scampers, and then go back to the fucking hammer. See if I can get anything else out of her.
Okay.
About halfway through the night.
So you're ignoring all the commotion downstairs with this fight and everything else? You don't want any part of that?
When that happens, I think I'll slip down. And
Okay.
so Adrex is trying to steal these keys off this kobold while he's patching them up.
Well, when you come back down, you see the goblin limping out of the surgery, with this freshly cleaned and stitched wound. He's pulling his shirt back down into place, and he's making for the back of the ship where the sailors' bunks are.
Does Adrex say or do anything here?
Adrex has a frown on his face, arms crossed.
I'll sidle up next to Adrex and kind of whisper, "What just happened? Anything we should do?"
The goblin's hiding something.
Something physical, something in his head.
Physical, yeah.
Okay, I could get either of those. You want me to go get it?
Just the physical.
Okay. So yeah, I'll just start cleaning up on the lower deck and kind of casually make my way back to the area where the goblin was headed.
Okay, and back in the crewman's quarters, when you get in there, you see the goblin is sitting on his cot in one end of the room. Most of the cots are taken up with people who are asleep, who worked on the day shift, and it looks like he's just taking a couple slugs of rum to try to help numb the pain before he gets back to work. He sees you come in. He says something to the effect of, "Can you believe that sneaky, smelly kobold jumps me with a shiv? Noakes is going to throw him over. You see that he doesn't."
Why, do you want him?
Says, "You're the one who was chained to the oar for the first week. What did you do?"
I was just trying to get a better look at the lower decks.
Poking your nose in places it's not welcome, is that it?
Well, it's only not welcome if they know you're there. Otherwise, it's just not known.
He asks you if you know what they've got down there.
No, they grabbed me before I could get a good look.
He says that every time the ship takes on new crew, and you guys, the 5 of you, are still the newest. Every time the ship takes on new crew, there's kind of a betting pool amongst the crew to see which, if any of them, would get snared by that sleeping trap.
Oh, I hope I didn't cost you any nights of grog, a few rations of grog.
And he gives you a dirty look. He tells you that he lost 15 silver. He put it down on your kobold.
That was reasonable. It was actually something of a surprise to me too. So how many people, obviously you don't know what I want to say here. Who hasn't been snared by that sleeping trap?
He tells you that it happens from time to time. People get curious and poke around. And usually what happens in that situation is Noak makes them walk the plank. Stealing from the ship is a capital offense. It is a incredible breach of trust with the captain, a breach of the ship's code. You're the first one that didn't, although very nearly from his understanding.
What's this goblin's name? Do I know?
Queesginkle.
Well, the captain saw that my unique skills were perhaps better not wasted in the ocean.
And he takes another long draft of his rum, and he puts the stopper back in, and he hides the bottle back behind his cot with his meager possessions.
How about as a recompense for my foolishness, 5 silver, and I get on the next pool.
You're giving him 5 silver?
Yeah.
As an apology for...
Yeah, as long as I can get in on the next pool.
The next pool over the course of the night. Well, before we end up this scene here, is your goal to lift the keys off of him?
Not right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep my eye on him though, because I want to know if he's trying to get below deck, or basically I want to know if he's trying to go any place he shouldn't be. So I'm gonna kind of shadow him for the rest of the night. I won't go see the hammer.
Okay. He spends most of the rest of the night. He and the rest of the crew. There's a lot of discussion about the commotion below deck.